Many people who follow me often ask me for advice on a wide variety of topics. Given the nature of my content, most questions are work related, but people also ask questions about life in general. So I've gotten thousands and thousands of questions from all over the map, but there are some common themes that stand out within the questions. And based on the questions, I can understand where people are coming from and the situations that they're probably in. For example, when someone asks what's the best way to stand out during an interview process, I can assume that A, they're interviewing, but B, that they're having a difficult time finding their next job, or else they wouldn't have reached out for help in the first place. And again, the reason that I bring this up is despite the thousands of questions that I'm getting, most of the questions fall into a smaller subset of scenarios or themes. So using the question about standing out during interviews as an example, the theme for that one is that people are having a difficult time finding jobs. Another question that would come from that same theme is how to find jobs on LinkedIn. So again, these are two different questions, but it's coming from the same place. So to sum this up, say that I get 1,000 questions, there's probably a maximum of 5 to 10 different themes that I can talk about to give answers to all 1,000 people. And one of the most obvious and recurring themes that I see within the questions that people are sending to me is that people don't have honest and open feedback with their employees. To put it more simply, they don't know how to communicate with their employees. Questions that come out of this theme is, how do I get constructive criticism from my employees? Or what questions should I put on my employee surveys? Or how do I improve the mental health of my workforce? All of those questions are coming from people who don't have 100% open and honest communication with their employees. If they already had this honest communication, then their employees would already be giving them constructive criticism. They wouldn't need any surveys, and all of their employees would already have great mental health. If each of the people asking these questions would focus solely on having honest and open communication with their employees, then all of their problems would be solved and they wouldn't have these questions. So the bigger question for each of them is a question that none of them have asked. The question is, how do I have honest and open communication with all of my employees? One of the most popular ways is using anonymous surveys, and how that works is that you tell your employees they're answering surveys and all their answers will be anonymous, when in fact they aren't anonymous and the employer knows who is answering what and saying what. However, these aren't particularly effective. I think people have caught on to the fact that they're not actually anonymous and they just give false positive, really fluffy answers because they know that their employer is watching them and knowing what they're saying about them. Another common approach is companies simply try to cultivate and foster an open and honest company culture. However, the working and corporate world is merely an extension of human nature, and it's not in human nature to tell the truth. And if you compound that with the hollow and manipulative tendencies of the working world, the end result is a group of very dishonest people. And all of this is just leading up to my solution. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned in business and in life in general is, in order to find an innovative solution, you don't need to look or predict into the future. You need to look back into the past. So I started my research and I looked into the past to see how people have used certain methods to get honest and open answers and feedback from other human beings. I looked at using truth serum, I looked at using polygraph lie detector tests, but there was one solution that really stood out from the pack. This approach was first documented to be used during the 14th and 15th century during the Spanish Inquisition. In the 17th century, Europeans used these during the witch trials. During World War II, the Japanese army used these on prisoners of war. During the Vietnam War, US forces used it pretty sporadically, and most recently in America during the early 2000s, the CIA used this during the War on Terror. So this technique has been used for over 500 years, but it has a very negative stigma for why and how it was implemented. Put simply, in most cases, this method was used as a form of torture, and this is a gap in the technology because there's many other use cases that it can be used for. And one of the use cases is the way that I use it. So instead of using it for torture, I use it to improve communication at my company. So instead of using antiquated and outdated surveys, I ask my employees questions while I waterboard them. I ask them questions like, do you like working here? Would you refer a friend to work here? Do you approve of leadership? Questions like this. And ever since we started using this method, our communication has become become crystal clear and our employee approvals have skyrocketed. Ever since we rolled it out, 100% of our employees have said that they love working here, that they would definitely refer a friend, and that they very much approve of leadership. And it's been so successful with our current employees that we decided to implement it during the interview process. So we just started waterboarding all of our applicants. So in summary, following through and implementing this innovative approach has taught me 3 big lessons. Number 1, if you want your company to be successful, you need to go against the grain and you need to push back against the norm. Number 2, you need to do whatever it takes to prioritize open and honest communication with your employees. And number 3, most importantly, relating to waterboarding, oftentimes there's very innovative products just floating out in the ether, and all it takes is someone to see that technology and understand how to better implement it. Waterboarding is just one example, but there are many, many other examples of technologies and approaches and methods just floating out there, and it's just going to take one person, maybe one of you, to see it and understand how to scale it. And the last thing I want to say is that waterboarding should never be used to torture prisoners of war or prisoners in general. I think it's completely inhumane, but I think waterboarding is extremely effective to be used if you want to improve the communication of your company.